Welcome to Social Security Post that breaks down the truth behind your benefits. Social Security, Medicaid, and SNAP with no spin, just real answers. If you're new here or a regular viewer, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and drop your questions in the comments. If you've ever wondered whether there's a simple fix to the looming crisis in Social Security, you're in the right place. Today, we're uncovering a shocking truth. All it takes is 5%, just 5%, to prevent Social Security from dipping into its savings and putting over 60 million retirees at risk. This isn't some complicated political theory or a pie-in-the-sky solution. It's basic math, and it's backed by data straight from the Social Security Administration's own Trustees report. So stay tuned. By the end of this video, you'll know why this number matters, what it would fix, and what could happen if Congress continues to ignore it. At first glance, the Social Security program may seem stable. Monthly checks still go out, recipients continue receiving their benefits, but beneath the surface lies a financial structure that is quietly eroding. And the most shocking part, fixing this erosion could come down to achieving just a 5% return on trust fund assets. Let's start with some simple facts. The Social Security Trust Fund currently holds around $2.72 trillion. That sounds like a massive amount, and it is, but last year the program paid out $67 billion more in benefits than it collected in income. That gap didn't magically disappear. It was filled by tapping into the trust fund, essentially dipping into savings to keep things afloat. Here's where it gets even more troubling. The interest earned on that $2.72 trillion was just $69 billion, equivalent to a return of about 2.5%. That's astonishingly low. In today's economy, even a basic savings account can offer better returns than that. So what does this mean for the future? If this trend continues, paying out more than what's collected and earning too little interest on the savings, Social Security could become insolvent within a decade. That's not a hypothetical. It's laid out clearly in the annual Trustees report, a document few read, but every retiree should care about. But here's the real kicker. This entire shortfall could be closed simply by doubling the return from 2.5 to 5%. That alone would generate an additional $66 billion annually, almost exactly the same as the deficit we saw last year. In other words, Social Security wouldn't need to draw a single dollar from the trust fund. It would be self-sustaining once again. This isn't about slashing benefits. It's not about raising taxes. It's about smarter management of existing assets. Yet year after year, this basic fix is ignored. Why? That's what we'll explore next. It's easy to point fingers at benefit increases or demographic shifts when talking about Social Security's funding issues. But the real flaw might be hiding in plain sight: how the trust fund is allowed to invest. Right now, Social Security is legally required to invest its reserves exclusively in special issue U.S. Treasury securities. These are considered safe, but their return rates are alarmingly low, just 2.5% in the most recent cycle. Compare that to today's financial landscape, where even conservative bank products like CDs, certificates of deposit, or money market accounts are yielding 3 to 5%. This restriction severely limits the program's financial growth. If those same funds were allowed to be invested in a diversified portfolio, like pension funds often are, they could easily average 6 to 8% returns annually. In some cases, long-term investment strategies have yielded as much as 10 or 12%. And let's be clear, this isn't an experimental concept. Public and private pension systems already use mixed portfolios that include stocks, bonds, ETFs, and mutual funds. They do this safely with built-in risk management, and they succeed in growing assets faster than inflation or withdrawals. So why can't Social Security do the same? The answer is buried in legislation passed decades ago when inflation was high, economic volatility was feared, and financial markets were less accessible. Back then, Treasuries were seen as the ultimate safe harbor, but times have changed, the economy has evolved, and so must our investment strategy. There are lawmakers today who are pushing to modernize these rules. They argue that the Social Security Trust Fund should be allowed to participate in the broader market under strict guidelines, just like any responsible retirement plan. The idea isn't to turn it into a hedge fund. It's about making smart long-term investments that protect the future of retirees. Because here's the thing, every year that passes without reform, the trust fund continues to bleed more money than it brings in. And with current interest rates lagging behind even basic benchmarks, the longer we wait, the deeper the hole becomes. Next, let's talk about what would actually happen if we just raise the return from 2.5 to 5%. and how that one adjustment could change everything. Let's break it down. What would actually happen if Social Security simply earned a 5% return instead of 2.5% on its trust fund? It's not a complicated equation. It's basic finance, and the answer is transformative. Currently, Social Security holds $2.72 trillion in its trust fund. That's the safety net meant to support over 60 million Americans who rely on monthly checks for essentials like rent, food, medications, and utility bills. At a 2.5% interest rate, the fund earns about $69 billion per year. But it's not enough. Last year, the program spent $67 billion more than it earned from payroll taxes. Now imagine if that return doubled. A 5% yield would generate about $135 billion annually in interest alone. That's not just enough to cover the existing shortfall. It actually creates a surplus that could replenish the trust fund instead of depleting it. Think about what that means. No immediate benefit cuts, no tax hikes, no borrowing from other parts of the federal budget, just a more responsible, growth-oriented investment plan. Even more importantly, this approach buys us time. Insolvency projections currently estimate that by 2033 or 2034, the trust fund could run dry if current trends continue. But if we generate enough interest to cover annual shortfalls, we delay that deadline by decades, giving Congress the breathing room needed to consider longer-term structural changes without hurting current beneficiaries. Now, some might argue that increasing investment returns isn't safe, but in reality, many pension plans, endowments, and retirement funds already operate under this model, balancing risk with long-term growth. Nobody's suggesting a high-risk approach, but earning 5% annually on diversified, regulated investments is a goal that's not only realistic, it's responsible. What's even more frustrating is that many of us as individuals already know how to get better returns. Anyone with a 401k, Roth IRA, or investment account likely sees returns over 5% in a decent market year. Why is it that the government, with access to professional economists and asset managers, is stuck earning less than what a basic index fund might produce? This 5% fix won't solve everything, but it changes the game. It buys us time, it stabilizes the system, and most importantly, it protects seniors who did everything right, worked hard, paid into the system, and now just want what they were promised. Let's move forward and explore what happens if nothing is done, because the consequences of inaction are far worse than most people realize. If we continue on the current path with low interest returns and no changes to the law, Social Security is projected to reach insolvency within 10 years. That doesn't mean the program disappears, but it does mean automatic benefit cuts, and those cuts won't be small. Most estimates suggest that without reform, Social Security will only be able to pay about 77 to 80% of scheduled benefits once the trust fund runs dry. For the average retiree, that could mean losing hundreds of dollars per month, money many seniors simply don't have to spare. Let's put that in real world terms. Imagine a retired couple living on a combined $2,000 per month from Social Security. After a 20% cut, that drops to $1,600. That's a $400 loss every month, or nearly $5,000 per year. For seniors already choosing between groceries and prescription refills, this could be devastating. And the most tragic part, it's avoidable. We've already seen that a simple change in return strategy could delay or prevent these cuts altogether. But without congressional action, the program is legally required to reduce payouts once the trust fund is depleted. There's no wiggle room, no emergency override. It's written into the law. What makes this more infuriating is that current beneficiaries will suffer the most. It won't just be tomorrow's retirees who feel the pain. It will be people already relying on checks today. Seniors who budgeted their entire retirement based on a certain income level will have to downsize, move, or cut critical expenses just to survive. And it won't stop with seniors. Disabled Americans, widows, and survivors who also depend on Social Security will face the same reductions. Children receiving benefits after a parent's death or disability will see their income slashed too. These aren't just statistics. These are people, families, neighbors, veterans, mothers, grandparents. The longer lawmakers wait to act, the more drastic the measures will need to be. The fix, like adjusting interest rates, is still feasible right now. But if they wait too long, the only remaining tools may be benefit cuts, retirement age increases, or tax hikes, all of which come with serious consequences for working Americans and retirees alike. So the question becomes, why wait? Why watch the program decline when a basic financial adjustment could offer stability? That's the question every American should be asking and demanding answers to. Fixing Social Security's investment problem isn't about defying laws, it's about changing outdated ones. The current law mandates that the trust fund can only be invested in special issue U.S. Treasury bonds, which offer safety but low yields. This rule was created in a different era, an era without index funds, without fintech tools, and without the global market access we have today. Now, the good news, lawmakers are beginning to wake up. Over the last few years, there have been congressional discussions and proposed bills aiming to modernize Social Security's investment strategy. Some suggest creating a hybrid system where a small percentage of the trust fund could be invested in diversified portfolios under strict regulatory oversight. Others propose forming an independent investment board similar to how state retirement systems manage pension assets. These solutions would preserve the fund's security while enhancing its performance, generating more income without increasing risk to taxpayers. Of course, there are political hurdles. Some leaders worry about exposing the fund to stock market volatility. Others are concerned that shifting to diversified investments might require more complex regulation or accountability. But these challenges are manageable, and they pale in comparison to the consequences of doing nothing. The truth is, inaction is far riskier than modernizing our approach. We already know that better returns are achievable. We know that other systems, both public and private, do it every day. We know that millions of Americans are already earning more than 5% annually on their retirement savings. Why shouldn't the most important retirement system in the country aim for the same? Change won't happen overnight, but the longer we delay, the smaller our options become. That's why it's so important to raise awareness and pressure lawmakers to act. Whether it's by contacting your representatives, sharing videos like this, or simply staying informed, you can make a difference. And here at Social Security Post, we're committed to breaking it down, keeping you updated, and making sure your voice is heard. There it is, just 5%. That's all it takes to transform Social Security's outlook from crisis to stability. No tax hikes, no benefit cuts, just smarter use of the money already in the system. This isn't a fantasy, it's a practical, achievable goal. And yet, without action, over 60 million Americans face the very real risk of reduced checks, uncertainty, and stress. If you found this breakdown helpful, take a moment right now to like this video and subscribe to Social Security Post, where we tackle the facts behind your benefits without fear-mongering or fluff. And if you have any questions about Social Security, Medicaid, or SNAP, drop them in the comments below. We read every comment, and this is the only channel where you'll find real fact-checked answers designed for you. Until next time, take care, and let's keep fighting for the benefits you've earned.